Okay, there we go. Turned up audio. Now you all should be able to hear me. Just currently testing out if this is working or not. If anyone's on YouTube, I don't know. It should be public. It is currently, okay, I don't know what time it is there. It's currently 9:13 p.m. for those in Mauritius. There we go. Now finally people are starting to tune in. So yeah, we have Cyclone Chido. I believe it's pronounced Cheeto. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It's about to hit the Agalega Islands right over there off to the west. Of course, it is a pretty powerful storm, an intense tropical cyclone, major cyclone, Category 3, possibly Category 4, I believe it could be at this time. And the islands, the Agalega Islands, are about to get walloped by the western eye wall pretty soon. And they are around only 16 miles. That would be, let's see, 26 kilometers away from the landfall. So, should make landfall within the next hour or so. See, there we go. We do have a buoy, or not buoy, but surface observations on that island, showing that the pressure is trying to drop. It is taking its time. It is a pinhole storm, so pressure will drop pretty quickly. They got 1,007 millibars as of the latest update. Don't know if we can see it on here at all. Nope, of course not. And of course, this stream is going to be a little bit iffy because we don't have any... What? Okay. Is it working fine? Yeah, it seems to be working fine. But yeah, we don't have radar imagery, we don't have all that stuff. We only have 15-minute updating satellites, so not that great. This radar frame is 30 minutes, or the satellite image is 30 minutes out of date. So a lot of things can change in 30 minutes. Don't think we have any better imagery to use. Because this is using Meteosat. There we go. So yeah, this imagery, and I don't know why these are two different times. And we can see, though, the convective bursts that the storm has had over the last few hours, getting that CDO, that central dense overcast, this main circle right in here, better organized. So it is trying to intensify. The thing is, microwave imagery shows that it's trying to undergo an eye wall replacement cycle, which means that it may weaken over the next 24 hours or so unless it's able to back out of it. We can see, though, that the storm is getting better organized over time. The eye was pretty good here before new convective bursts are starting to cloud it over. Eye temperature was as high as 16 degrees. Now it's starting to cloud over at around 8 degrees Celsius. Alright, we got a new radar or satellite frame on Windy. I do not know when this was updated, so yeah, they're starting to try and get into the stadium eye right here, or at least the outer edges of the eye. I believe the eye wall, though, is going to be right around here. So this would be the area of the most intense winds that are about to pummel the Agalega Islands pretty soon. Within the next 15 minutes would be my guess. Oh, hi, Mr. Peach. How are you doing? You're the first person to send a chat message, and I've been streaming for 5 minutes. How are you doing? We don't have much information on the storm, unfortunately, because it's in a very open ocean area, so we don't have much for radar. Yeah, the storm is moving slower than forecasted. It's this little orange circle or little spinning thing is where the system was supposed to be, or where it's forecasted to be at this time. And then you can see where the storm's center actually it is. It's a little bit more north than forecasted and a bit slower. It's a little bit lagging behind, meaning that it is likely to make landfall in the Agalega Islands pretty soon. Elite says, "Sup, how are you doing?" Oh, Mr. Peach says, "I'm doing fine." That is great. And of course, the Agalega Islands are not the only landmass that are going to get impacts. There's only around 330 who live on those islands. The system will be going towards Madagascar. And keep in mind, it is moving a little bit more north than forecasted, so maybe it could miss Madagascar, or maybe it could correct itself towards the south and dead on hit Madagascar. Then it could hit the Comoros Islands or go on into the. Well, of course, it will go onto the Mozambique Channel, pretty much no matter what, and impact Mozambique as a at least tropical storm. Should be a tropical system. Unless it hits Madagascar, then that would weaken it by a lot. But I do believe conditions are a bit unfavorable, so it should start weakening before it hits Madagascar. Lead says, "Good, what about you?" I am doing fine, just a bit tired. Okay, I don't know. Is the stream running okay? Is it running smoothly or is it lagging? Mr. Peach says, "What do you think the forward speed is?" Let's take a look at that. Okay, I can't pull up longer than an hour loop, so this is going to be a bit difficult. Oh, I can use this. So it's moved about 20 kilometers or so in the past hour, moving southwest actually. Oh, here we go. We have a new radar frame, or new satellite image. Moved at around 15 kilometers over the past hour. And over the past, oh wait, nope, that's the wrong thing. Let me do this again. Alright, in an hour's time, it's moved around 20 kilometers, so, yeah, around 20 kilometers an hour. And then if I go an hour before, 35 kilometers, so it should be around 20 kilometers an hour. Okay, good, the stream's running fine. Okay. Elite says the Euro model forecast it won't make landfall in Madagascar. Let's take a look at some of the model runs for the system. Alright, here's the European model. It has it moving barely over the northern end, hitting the Comoros Islands, and then pummeling into Madagascar. Or, sorry, into Mozambique. It still has a decent system there due to the brown ocean effect, meaning that storms can intensify over marshy land, flat land. Let's take a look at the Canadian model. Canadian model has it hitting and dissipating over Madagascar, which would be good news for Mozambique, bad news for Madagascar. The German model, it's very difficult because the models aren't doing so well with how it's doing right now, or what we refer to as initialization. The American model does show it narrowly missing Madagascar, potentially making landfall in the northern tip. Before then, of course, hitting Mozambique. If we take a look at the high-resolution models, like the HWRF, these models have been, of course, initializing poorly. Or no, this is actually a while ago. There hasn't been a run for quite some time. Let's look at the halves run. Okay, this is more up to date. This run is just coming out. It has it moving just south of the Agalega Islands, but still intensifying into around the 950s millibars, so kind of where it's already at right now. It does have it narrowly missing the northern tip of Madagascar, which would mean it would be able to hold that intensity as it's entering the Mozambique Channel. It does have it weakening, impacting the Comoros Islands, potentially making landfall on the southeastern one. And then it would have it plummeting towards Mozambique as a major cyclone, I believe. Yeah, Category 3. So it does have it narrowly missing Madagascar as a Category 4, and then entering towards entering the Mozambique Channel as a Category 3, and then potentially slamming into Mozambique as a Category 3 strength system. Now, we don't know how this will unfold. There's a great bit of uncertainty if it hits Madagascar or not. It's got like a 50-50 shot of doing so. So if it goes on the more southern solution, it should be a much weaker storm entering into the Mozambique Channel. If it goes on the more northern solution, it should be a stronger system. Let's see. Curious to see what's causing it to move in that direction. I'm going to go over to the Southern Africa. Oh, here's our system. There it goes. Okay. Okay, it's just a ridge blocking it. This little orange thing preventing it from going too far south. Just continuing to push it westwards towards Mozambique. And also some of the models have it impacting parts of Malawi as well. These areas are very prone to flooding, so if it does hit, you hope it moves fast, quickly, moves out of there. You don't want a system to stall, like Freddy, for example. But it makes it as a trough all the way over to the South Atlantic Ocean, which is interesting. At least on the American model. But yeah, you can see it is still over Malawi as a tropical depression strength system, something around that. Elite says, if it remains that powerful after landfall, it would be devastating. Yep. If it hits Mozambique as a powerful system. Keep in mind, wind is not always the main concern with these poorer areas. It's the rainfall. They don't have that great of drainage. The latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center does have it as a Category 2 striking the northern tip of Madagascar. Yeah, there is a great bit of uncertainty. And Elite says this season is starting really strong, not gonna lie. Yes, we've had Becky, the strongest November system. I believe that's the record it held. So now we're getting another Category 4 in the southwest Indian Ocean, this time targeting Madagascar and Mozambique. Will be interesting to see if it can narrowly miss those islands. I don't know though. There was lightning in the eye wall earlier, which of course makes sense. I mean, that looks like it's going to hit from my perspective there. Maybe it could narrowly avoid it if it just goes to the south. But generally it is moving west-southwestwards, I believe, or almost due west. But it has curved south over the last few frames, it appears. If you have any questions about the storm, just be sure to ask them in chat. I'd be happy to answer. Elite says, what are the chances of a Category 5? Well, okay, that's a little bit tricky because the system is trying to undergo an eye wall replacement cycle, which would weaken the storm. Let's see if I can pull it up. This might be a good example. I believe that's what it's trying to do at this time. I mean, it's trying to form... I can't really see it there, just from what I've heard. Which would mean that it would be weakening, or it would be attempting to weaken. So we don't know if it's already peaked earlier, if it's maintaining intensity, or if it's going to be weakening. It is a quite small eye, I believe. I'm going to fact check that. Yeah, I mean 6 mile eye, wide eye, so that is a pinhole eye about the size of the islands there. They could narrowly, or like not the entirety of those islands could fit in the eye, which means not everyone is going to get into the eye. So since it's a pinhole though, the storm will want to get a broader eye eventually, so it will try to weaken, and I believe that's what it's attempting to do. The problem with that though is it makes the storm more resilient to shear, which would mean it'd be stronger by the time it impacts Madagascar, the Comoros Islands, or even Mozambique. So in terms of chances of Category 5, I don't really see it happening. It's also being told that the thermos aren't that good in terms of how warm the waters are. I'll pull that up. Yeah, waters are only around 28 degrees Celsius, so not really that supportive of a major like Category 5 or higher system. They are still conducive, of course, for a major cyclone of its intensity right now. Let's see, I want to see more model data. Here we go. So one of the reasons it got so strong was that shear downtrended. You'll notice that shear's around here, and then all of a sudden it just drops dramatically. So that's why it's been able to get so strong. But in terms of its environment, sea surface temperatures aren't that great. They will warm once it reaches the Mozambique Channel, right in here, so it would get more favorable in that sense, but over the next 48 hours or so, maybe even 72 hours, shear is expected to rise, so that would become less favorable. I mean, it's still good for it to be a major cyclone if it wants to, or if it's going to collapse, then it wouldn't. But so shear is going to be a limiting factor. Dry air, it's relative humidity isn't that great. Still, of course, supports something like a major cyclone like it is right now. And something interesting to note here is you can see the Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast has it more south than the American ensembles. You are welcome, elites. Weather Uncharted says I'm back. HCC, welcome back. I'm glad you were able to attend this stream. So yeah, we should see a landfall within the next hour or so. If it does decide to make a landfall. And give it around a 70% chance, that's why I'm doing a live stream. Of course, additional live streams may be necessary if it makes landfall in Madagascar, or the Comoros Islands, or Mozambique as a Category 1 or stronger system. Yep, it's getting closer. This latest frame, I don't know how old it is. We're around 7 miles away from land, or around 11 kilometers away. So yeah, within the next hour, I believe it should make its landfall. Yeah, now the eye temperature is nearing the negatives. It's only 0.17 Celsius when earlier it was up to around 16, almost 17 degrees Celsius. So it's trying to go under structural improvements, under the hood as we call it. This is just from space what we're seeing. So these would be the tops of the storms, not like the radar or eye wall. Can't really see all that stuff under the hood. Yeah, the eye wall may be already impacting the southern Agalega Island, if not already. Agalega South Island. Okay, so this frame was around 30 minutes old. Yeah, so maybe within the next hour it is very difficult to tell without radar. Weather Uncharted says this will be my first season fully tracking Southern Hemisphere cyclones. Well, yep, these cyclones are pretty interesting. Of course, spinning the opposite direction as the Northern Hemisphere. The Southwest Indian Ocean has a lot more ocean to work with. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is the cone of insurgency right here. What areas could receive tropical storm conditions or greater? If you're in this area, you should be watching the storm closely. And of course, as we go further down the center of the line, if the center just goes down there, only cyclone force winds would really only be in this range. So not a lot of areas getting, maybe a few thousand people, if that, could receive cyclone force winds. But any variability in track will vary the impacts largely and who gets what. Let's take a look at rainfall potential. For the next 3 days, this is the European model, which has it missing Madagascar to the north, but still delivering around 5 inches of rain. Let me convert that to millimeters. So around 125 millimeters, maybe up to 200 millimeters if it gets closer. And then we broaden it out to the 5-day range. See that parts of the Comoros Islands get around 150 millimeters or so. And then, of course, Mozambique being the main target, upwards of 200 millimeters. And that rain is not limited to the coast, it will extend very far inland of areas over 100 millimeters and parts of Malawi as well. The American model, let's take a look at that. A lower resolution model. Alright, still around 150 millimeters on the northern tip of Madagascar. We got around 125 millimeters for parts of the Comoros Islands. The GFS has less rainfall, around 90 to 50 millimeters across Malawi and Mozambique. Again, the amounts of rain that you could receive vary largely based on what the storm's going to do over the next 48 hours. And the German model, this is one that has it dissipating almost entirely. I'm not going to show that because that doesn't really show any impacts for Malawi. Right, here we go, a high resolution model. This is just over the next day or so, but yeah, you can see how wherever the center goes, this would be over the ocean though, over a 300 millimeters of rainfall in a day. Yep. So around within the next 24 hours or so, you can see some of the outer bands already impacting northern Madagascar. I do like how there is a high resolution model in this area, but it only goes out one day. Yeah, the core is relatively small compared to Madagascar, so if it moves over here, the impacts would really only be limited to the northern tip, at least the core of heaviest rainfall. Elite says eye is closing or what? Yeah, it seems like it's trying to undergo an eye wall replacement cycle. At this time, it's difficult to say though. But yeah, eye temperature is certainly cooling. Now let's take a look at it, what it's at. Right now, if it's updated, nope. Last frame was 0.17 Celsius, so almost in the negatives now. Alright, Lee Bowler asks, at Hurricane Chaser Chase, eye wall replacement cycle happening now. It does seem like that's a possibility. Microwave imagery was supposed to show that, but it's hard to tell what it's doing under the hood, as we refer to it. Here's a look at the latest halves run, which is a high resolution model forecast here on the system. So timing wise, this is going to be difficult because this is not a 12-hour difference from me and Mauritius. So right now it's around 9 o'clock, so alright, I don't know. 18Z would then be their nighttime, 06Z would be their morning. Alright. Wait, so it's PM right now. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just trying to get a sense of what all this means. Alright. 18Z, this would be the 12th night. Okay, so this would be tomorrow morning, where the system should be. Nothing really impacting Madagascar yet. Tomorrow night, some bands could be approaching Madagascar, northern Madagascar, hard to say. And then going into the 13th morning for you all, that's when the outer bands are starting to really impact areas. You can see some thunderstorms bubbling up. And then once we go into around the evening time for you all on the 13th, that's when the core of the system is expected to plow through. If it does hit northern Madagascar, it could go more north, could go farther south, but the main impact should occur on the 13th at around sometime between evening-ish, morning to evening, that general range, and conditions should lighten up by the nighttime. At least the wind strength. There could still be thunderstorms, scattered thunderstorms across. Oh yeah, Vmax of 141 knots. Yeah, so this does have it as a Category 5 strength system. And then at around the 14th morning, that's when it's going to be impacting the Comoros Islands, right over here, with potentially cyclone strength winds, Category 1 or higher. So impacts could start at around the early like AM hours, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. for you all on the 14th, and then conditions should really deteriorate at around the morning time. Okay, that's pretty cool. Seeing all the thunderstorms bubble up over everywhere, really. Yeah, that is another factor to consider. A band's on around. This would be the evening time for you all on the 14th in western, northwestern Madagascar. Could get some thunderstorms firing up, and of course, everywhere else around Africa. And by that time, the system is going to be moving away from the Comoros Islands, and by the 14th night, conditions should begin to improve in the Comoros Islands. Of course, the influence of the system's moisture will be firing thunderstorms all across Madagascar. We can't really say that this is specifically where they will occur, but they could occur across Madagascar. And then going into the 15th AM hours, I believe, um, very, very early into the AM hours, that's when the storm's outer band should begin to impact parts of Mozambique. And then we get towards the morning time on the 15th. That's when the system's core could strike land. And going further into the evening and night of the 15th, that's when the system's outer bands are going to start impacting parts of Malawi. And it looks like sometime on the 16th morning, maybe even AM hours, that's when the core should go through Malawi. Weather Uncharted says during 2023 I missed Cyclones Freddy entirely. I didn't know it existed until a couple months later. A fun fact about that: I was sick with pneumonia or whatever in the hospital during that. But before that happened, I was tracking Freddy, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is a pretty, interesting system by Australia." Then I'm in the hospital for around a week, and I'm still tracking it, still trying to post updates. And then after the hospital, it's still ongoing. That was just insane, the fact that the system was ongoing during that whole process. Dark Steve says, "Hi, hello, how are you doing? Is Cheeto doing eyewall replacement cycle?" And then he said, "Okay, so Cheeto's peaking." It's hard to tell. I'm gonna ask real quick. Oh yeah, it's about to make a landfall pretty soon. This imagery is around 30 minutes out of date, so definitely with the next 45 minutes or so, it should be making landfall. But yeah, the harshest of winds, at least on the western side, are beginning to impact Agaligas South Island. Once again, it's hard to tell if it's peaking, if it's undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle. We'll know a lot more within the next 12 to 24 hours, especially on the impacts that will occur to Madagascar and Mozambique, because a lot can change. Alright, let's take a look at how fast it's moving now. Alright, at around 20 kilometers an hour. If the storm's around 10 kilometers away from land, then yeah, within the next 30 minutes or so, I'm gonna lower that counter. Let's see, so 42 minus 15, hold on. So I'm gonna bring it down to 27 minutes, I think, once it hits. think that's correct. Weather Uncharted said this is kind of reminding me of Batsarai, the storm that got me into cyclonic weather. Batsarai was impressive. Mr. Peach has fun fact: Cyclone Freddy was the longest lasting tropical cyclone ever. It did have the most ace before reanalysis brought it down for some reason. And Dark Steve says, I find it funny that Tropical Tidbits is calling Chido a potential tropical storm or a potential tropical cyclone. Yep, that's because okay, the system. What was I gonna say? All right, it has to do with ATCF, a forecasting thing. What the Joint Typhoon Warning Center does. I don't know why exactly. Anyways, here's a look at the Ensemble spread. This is the American one. You can see it's around 50-50, maybe 60% chance it avoids land, 40% chance it hits, at least on Madagascar, and around a 90% chance it hit Mozambique. Let's actually take a look more so on Ensembles. Yep, so here we go. Here's track density. You can see how spread the ensembles are. It's not really consistent. We know where it's going to be north or south, but in terms of forward movement speed, that's a little bit more varied. I mean, that's pretty rare for systems to be varied that much by speed. We don't know how quick it's going to move. Could already be hitting Madagascar around the, let's see, 13th AM hours, or it could hit all the way on the 14th AM hours, so there's a 24-hour difference in time frame. Some ensembles actually take it up here, which I'm curious as to why. Yeah, majority of models, though, or ensembles, do take it into Mozambique and towards Malawi. Ensemble means, okay, it's more so the Canadian, oh yeah, the Canadian, because the Canadian really has it dissipating. Some ensembles have it just completely, dissipating, basically dying out. Overall, in terms of track, the European model has it more south at the end, which would have it as a more organized system. Because of the brown ocean effect, these storms would like to stay strong as they're over land, and the closer you are to the coast, the better. But systems like the American model do have it weakening there and dissipating. Alright, let's take a look at specifically the GEFS, American ensembles. Alright, so this would be on the... Hold on, let me think again. Yeah, okay. This would be on tomorrow morning, or the 12th morning for you all. And then the 13th morning is when it's finally approaching land. 13th, that around evening, is where the center of the ensembles have it closest to land. And then around the, let's see, 13th night to around 14th morning is when it's starting to impact the Comoros Islands. And then around the 15th morning, it's impacting the Mozambique general area. Yeah, once again, there's a large area of variability on where the system could go. Looking at the GFS ensembles, there's maybe around a 30% chance it hits land in Madagascar and around a 70% chance the center at least avoids. Impacts, I'd give it around a 90% chance that impacts will likely occur on the northern tip of Madagascar at the very least. And yeah, ensembles wise, it has like a 90% chance at hitting Mozambique. Now, how strong, that's a little bit hard to say. Here's a look at the European ensembles. Much stronger. And yeah, so Around the 13th nights is when they have it impacting the northern tip of Mozambique. And around the 14th morning, or notice how the ensembles, though, curve a lot more south in the beginning in the Mozambique channel. Which is why most of them, there's some that don't even hit the northern tip of Mozambique. And some ensembles actually don't hit land at all, they just curve right out to sea in the Mozambique channel. Of course, these are the stronger solutions because they're staying over water. Yeah, the European model does do a great job at tracking brown ocean effect systems. Further inland, you can see it hitting Malawi and then headed towards Zimbabwe. We take a look at the Canadian ensembles, which this would be a complete disaster, because we really don't know what it's going to do with us. They're initializing it a lot weaker, which has it dissipating. And I don't believe okay, they do have stuff. All right, this is the United Kingdom Met models. Not really doing that great, but again, though, it does show that southernmost turn after Madagascar, possibly due to the shape of the coastline. All right, let's take a look at trends, the last 4 trends. So at least recently it's moved a bit faster than forecasted, I think. But now it's slowed down a bit. So it is moving a bit quicker than forecasted, which means landfall in Mozambique is going to be quicker than forecasted. Trend all runs. Yep, again though, it's showing that little bit of a southward jog right after Madagascar. Alright, now let's go over to total density of tracks here. Let's see if I can show it without some things. But yeah, overall you can see the little bit of a shape of the green, how it curves down right over here. Alright, here's the rough chance that the storm would be around within 200 kilometers of you. So, of course, Madagascar at around a 90% chance on the northern tip. This is what I'd like to say is like the chances of you getting impacts. Because, remember, the center isn't the only area of bad impacts. It extends well outside of the center. Yeah, most areas in Madagascar, central and southern, are really only going to get like thunderstorms fired up from the moisture. Typical summer weather for them. We had around 50-60% chance around the coastline of Mozambique. Even parts of Malawi in the 30-40% chance range. Then it extends even farther into Mozambique at around the 10-20% chance range. The GFS, though, you can see how far it makes it go. Wow. And let's see how close we are to a landfall. Nothing's updated yet. Great. Okay. Alright, it's getting very close. Yeah, that northern edge has fractured a bit, as you all can see. Yeah, I'd say a landfall's likely within the next 16 minutes or so. Let's see what people are saying now. Yeah, they're saying it's probably peaked earlier. Yeah, people are saying like, oh yeah, this is obviously peaked or too early to say. I feel like right now though it has. I mean, it is trying to weaken at this time. Weather Uncharted says, yeah, I think it peaked as a low category 4 and now has weakened to a category 3. Yeah, I'd say so. There we go. Now it's in the eye. So you should get some good observations on the island. Eye temperature has warmed a bit for some reason, now up to 2.5 Celsius, so not yet in the negatives. But yeah, it appears that these radar imageries are out of date. The lead says, is it trying to cross the gap? Let's take a look. Yeah, maybe. There's only around a mile wide of a gap. I remembered looking through that, being like, oh, could you swim across those islands? But it should hit one or the other. Yeah, those in St. Rita are in the eye. They might be exiting it already. This imagery is like 30 minutes out of date, so hard to tell. I'm just declaring landfall in around 12 minutes or so. I did want to mention the fact, though, that if you haven't already seen the Eastern Pacific animation I released, you all should definitely go do that, or definitely go watch it. Spent a couple months on that. Elite says cool animation. Thank you. And of course, the Atlantic animation will also be releasing soon. So get ready for that on the 15th. December 15th at noon Eastern Standard Time. Lee Bowler says, Chase, will you make an animation of the Southwest Indian Ocean as well if the 24 or when the 24-25 season ends? I doubt it. They don't really get that much attention unless it's like a historical year. But I haven't been logging storms into the database in the Southern Hemisphere. It takes a lot of time to do these animations. Like, I just do 4 hours a day of just animating. Lead says, I think it's now going southwest. Yeah, wobbles are going to be common with this. And of course, pressure's decreasing, not really getting much out of it. I don't know why it keeps going. Oh, wait, this is just. I forget the observations aren't really that great here. Anyways, within the next 10 minutes, it should make its landfall. And then we have a lot of time to go until it makes its next landfall. If it does, there is a possibility it's able to maneuver itself around and just die out in the Mozambique Channel. I say that that's unlikely. Elite says I is 5 degrees Celsius. Let's pull that up. Are you sure earlier it was around 2.97? I can actually just take a look. Oh, yeah. Alright. Weather Uncharted says I see some models having potential public affecting the Philippines. Let's take a look at that. I know that there is potential that there's something developing in the Philippines, which is annoying because I'm trying to release my animation soon. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. There's always going to be these slop systems near the Philippines around early season and late season, so I don't know. The European AI model is what's gotten my interest. This one showing potentially a major typhoon out of it, and it's been showing that consistently. We also want something in the North Indian Ocean, which is also annoying because I'm trying to do the animation there as well. Let's see, Mr. Peach says I can only imagine the conditions inside the eye. Yep. Mr. Peach says, well, the eye wall, yeah. Elite says late season surprise, potentially. I don't know. We won't have a better idea until later in the year, or like over the next 10 days or so. Just checking out the Atlantic. So it should be done. Oh, and also I can pull up Ensembles for you all. And right there, you all can see that. Right there, just a general area of low pressure right there. In European ensembles, you can clearly see something over there within the next 6 days. So, yep, something to watch out for. Let's see, Weather Uncharted says, imagine if Tony forms on December 31st. That would be horrific, a tragedy for my animation. But yeah, I will not be able to. Well, actually, I could theoretically if there is something in the Philippines. I'm gonna be doing a trip from the 20th to the January 4th, traveling around trying to do a snow chase. I will be bringing my computer with me, all that stuff. So if I do need a stream, I will be. I should be available unless I'm snowed in or whatever. Right, within the next 5 minutes, we should see landfall. Lee Bowler says, Chase, do you think Chido is a Cat 4? No, I think it's around a Cat 3 right now. I think it's weakened some. Let's say around 110 knots. Yeah, Weather Uncharted says, I think Cheeto was a Category 4 earlier. Yes, I agree on that. Hoping that the next frame can come out. Yeah, that northern part of the eye is starting to, or eye wall is starting to break up. Yeah, this is what happens when pinhole storms are not in the best environment. So it's going to try and do an eye wall replacement cycle and should do a little bit better. I'm going to pull up another thing to take a better look at it. Where is it? Okay, no. There we go. Whoops. Here, so I can show you all the rough environment that it's in right now. So shear, not that bad. It's kind of in between the favorable and neutral stage, so not really that great for it. Sea surface temperatures, you can see they're entering around 29 Celsius, but they're in the 28 range right now, so not that great. Oceanic heat content I can't show, unfortunately. Can I zoom out and show it? No. Okay. But you can see the water vapor and how dry the air is over Madagascar, which could impact the storm as it gets closer if shear tries to break up part of the eye wall. But if the eye wall replacement cycle is successful, it should be able to fight that off. Elite says it's like 7 kilometers away from making landfall. The thing is, those imageries are out of date by like 30 minutes. Mr. Peach says, I mean, tropical cyclones have formed out of worse. Lol. Yep. Alright, we should see a landfall within the next 90 seconds. I'll declare it then. Yeah, people were saying the zenith angle there with the system. It's not that close, but right now there isn't really that much viewership, so I'm gonna try and call it soon. So let me get it all ready to go. Landfall sound effects. There we go. Okay, so I'd say it's made landfall at around 110 knots, maybe 105 knots. Not that great. This imagery is out of date. Keep that in mind again. So, again, in terms of when I'm going to be streaming next, potentially on the... Interesting, though, that there hasn't been a new cone in a while from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Anyways, next stream should be around Friday-ish, maybe Friday night. If it does look like it's going to make landfall in Madagascar, could be doing another stream on around Sunday, or not Sunday, Saturday nights, and then could be doing another one on Sunday nights. It would have to be a Category 1 strength system or higher, and it would have to be like a 70% chance of making landfall, maybe like 90% chance of making landfall. Yep, Weather Uncharted, I know that about Debbie. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next stream. Stay safe.